Hello and welcome to another historic video. Today we're checking out this Temur colored Breach combo deck that's built around one of the new mystical archives from Strixhaven. Brain Freeze is 1 and a blue for an instant, saying target player mills 3 cards, and it also has Storm, so we get to make an extra Storm copy for every other spell that's been cast this turn. So Brain Freeze is both an enabler and our eventual win condition in the deck, so we'll first often use it targeting ourselves to fill the graveyard, and then once our Storm count is high enough, we'll target our opponent to hopefully mill them out. So the goal is to cast Underworld Breach, an enchantment that will stay in play for 1 turn, giving each non-land card in our graveyard escape, with their escape cost being their normal mana cost, in addition to having to exile 3 cards from our graveyard. So Breach is only effective if we have a full enough graveyard, but that's where the Brain Freeze will come in handy, since we can always target ourselves to keep filling the graveyard and keep enabling the Underworld Breach. So then now the only limitation is how much mana we can generate, and we can potentially make all the mana we need if we have 2 copies of Mox Amber in circulation alongside a legendary creature, since a Mox Amber can tap to make a mana of any color among legendary creatures and planeswalkers we control. Mox Amber itself is also legendary, so we can only have 1 in play at the same time, meaning that if we played a second Mox Amber after tapping the first one now goes to the graveyard, where we can once again replay it after tapping the second Mox for mana. So we can keep generating 1 mana for every 3 cards we exile out of our graveyard, which is easily enough to sustain Brain Freeze, to keep milling ourselves and eventually targeting our opponent to mill them out. And then we also need some legendary creatures to enable the Mox Amber, of course. We've got 10 total in the deck, with Tamiyo at 1 mana. Can also maybe attack, generating some clue tokens to draw, but we're also pretty good at transforming it into the Planeswalker, which can then plus to shrink opposing attackers down for a turn, and then the -3 allows us to get back an instant or sorcery from our graveyard, and then if it happens to be green, we also get to add 1 mana of any color, which actually happens quite frequently, as we have 8 green instants and sorceries in the deck, with a full set of Manamorphose, can add 2 mana in any combination of colors and draws a card, so a very nice cantrip that actually turns into a ritual effect if we can discount it by 1 mana, since now it actually nuts us an extra mana. And then there's the Malevolent Rumble as another green sorcery, revealing the top 4 cards of our library, putting a permanent from among them into our hand. The rest ends up in our graveyard, and we also get to make a spawn token, which can be sacrificed for a colorless mana. So the Rumble is excellent for finding the Breach or various creatures, Mox Amber and lands, and it also fills the graveyard for Breach in the first place, so this card has been amazing. And then our remaining creatures are all ways to discount our instants and sorceries by 1. Got the full set of Ral and 2 copies of Baral. We're not really countering any spells, so Baral's second ability is not that useful, although being a blue creature can have its advantages with Mox Amber, since we can tap the Mox for a blue and still maybe cast a cantrip, whereas Ral is red, so then the Mox Amber also only makes red mana if it's our only legendary creature, although if we win a coin flip we can transform Ral into the Planeswalker, which is both blue and red, so then the Mox can make either color, and then Ral as a Planeswalker can also keep discounting our instants and sorceries, can also maybe work up towards the ultimate. The -2 also pretty good if we have another blue permanent in play, so there's a lot of possibilities here. But unlike the Ruby Storm deck, where we're often setting up the -8 on Ral, it's not going to happen all that often in this build. So then even if we do not have Mox Amber in circulation, we can still potentially go off with an Underworld Breach. If we have Ral or Baral discounting Manamorphose, we can make enough mana where we can then still cast a Brain Freeze, get back Manamorphose, cast another Brain Freeze, and from there we can usually mill the opponent out. And then, rounding out the deck, we've got some cantrips at 1 mana. Ponder, great with our various shuffle effects, like the fetch land. In the mana base, we've got Prismatic Vista to get 2 islands, a mountain, and a forest. But we also have cards like Thought Scour, targeting ourselves to mill 2 cards and draw a card, so we can get rid of maybe some unwanted cards that we kept on top with Ponder, since we did not want to shuffle. And then we also have the Malevolent Rumble, which can also maybe get rid of the unwanted cards from Ponder. And then 2 copies of the Flame to either draw 2 cards, destroy an artifact, or deal 5 damage to a creature. Although if we control a wizard, we get to choose 2 of those modes, and all 10 of our creatures are wizards, so they all enable the Flame for us. So then it's a pretty nice interactive spell that's still card advantage, especially nice if we can then also discount it by 1 mana with either Ral or Baral. Now the deck does not have any main deck answers to enchantments, so we are just called to a turn 2 High Noon out of some of the Azorius control decks in the format, but that's going to be a pretty rough matchup anyways, so I don't think adding cards like Boseiju in the mana base would make a huge difference. Could also maybe play some blue bounce effects, so like into the Floodmaw to try and fight the High Noon, but again, I don't think we are winning that matchup very often, so I'm fine giving it up. And then you also may have noticed Lurrus as our companion. We're not often gonna cast it, but it is technically possible if we control multiple copies of Mana Confluence, making either black or white, but we can also fix our colors with Mana Morphos, so that's how we can potentially still access Lurrus, which is a way to cast an Underworld Breach out of the graveyard, which can certainly be a relevant play, and can also help get back our Mox Amber or various legendary creatures. So I think including Lurrus is still worth it, even though it might give the opponent a little bit of information, but since this is kind of a rogue deck, I don't really expect people to know what's happening. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw. This hand is just missing Underworld Breach. Don't necessarily have a way to find it, but I think I'll still try this. Malevolent Rumble would also be a good top deck, as it can dig pretty deep to find a breach. Opponent on maybe a Charbelcher deck, playing these dual-faced lands. Ponder, a good draw. So let's Ponder, and then I can use Thoughtscour and Upkeep, or just use the Shuffle effect, and there's a breach. So I'll draw another Ponder, I think. Since we already have Brain Freeze to fill the graveyard, Thoughtscour is not a priority. And then next turn we'll top deck the breach, so at least it's going to be safe from an opposing Thoughtseize for a turn. And then I could play the Mox, although it also increases my Storm count for Brain Freeze, which could matter. Opponent playing these modal dual-faced lands, likely for Balustrade Spy or Goblin Charbelcher. And now a greedy Freebooter, likely paired with Culling the Weak to ramp into one of the aforementioned 4-drops. Okay, so the Mox plus Ral doesn't make any useful red mana. So possible that the correct place to first shuffle with a fetch land, Ponder and then Thoughtscour, so I can get rid of some unwanted cards. Get Island, since we already have a green source in hand. So then I can first Ponder, and then use Thoughtscour afterwards. Tamiyo is a pretty good pickup here. Enables the Mox Amber, and then I can still Thoughtscour afterwards. So we'll decline to shuffle. Play Tamiyo into Mox. If we were worried about a Snuff Out, we would play the Mox first, but our opponent doesn't have any swamps in play. So mill myself, and that should be my third card draw to transform Tamiyo. So that's pretty useful. Plus, and pass a turn. And then next turn we're in pretty good shape to combo off with Ral into Brain Freeze, into Breach. Another dual-faced land into a Scheming Symmetry. So our opponent's going to find whatever they want, but we also get to do the same. So what's the card that we most want to draw? Probably another Mox, so that should guarantee lethal next turn, assuming no Surgical Extraction. Could have also gone for Mana Morphos, which goes off with a discount and the Brain Freeze. Okay, so play Ral. Play Breach. Mox Amber also makes blue thanks to Tamiyo. So can play the Mox. Sacrifice one to the Legendary Rule. Tap this for blue. Brain Freeze myself for a bunch. And that'll fill the graveyard to keep escaping more cards, including the Mox Amber. And then at some point we can mill our opponent out. Now if our opponent is playing with Balustrade Spy, they might actively want to be milled. So then we could be doing them a favor here. So we'll have to wait and see if this is actually good enough. Alright, opponent scoops it up, so I guess they weren't on a graveyard deck, or they just didn't care. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have double Mana Morphos, Breach, Rumble. Missing maybe a creature to discount or spells, but yeah, I'll give it a shot. Can Ponder on one and then still shuffle one card away if we want to keep. So that still seems worth it. And find a Mox Amber, another Breach. So I'll keep the Mox, draw Sanctum, now I guess Mox for turn, and then Breach I can wait depending on the matchup, whether or not I think I'll need a second copy. And then if we don't think we need it, we can just shuffle with the Prismatic Vista. Draw the land instead of the Mox in case of a discard spell, since they can't take the land. Turn 1 Plains, Esper Sentinels, so not a matchup where I'm gonna need a second Breach. So then I'm fine to shuffle it away. And then probably get a Mountain. And for now Rumble instead of chaining together Manamorphose, since that's going to be more effective once we find a creature to discount them. Sentinel draws. Just a forest. So we should be getting close to drawing one of our creatures. Hopefully it's Aral or Baral. Ooh, Thalia. That's a problem. So it's a Death and Taxes deck, and not actually an Aura strategy. Found Tamio. But yeah, Thalia makes everything a lot more complicated. Manamorphose now costs me mana instead of netting me mana potentially. A Mox Amber for 1 just doesn't quite hit the same. So I need to find my Flame to answer Thalia pretty much. Can play Tamio, the Mox still at least pays for itself. I guess I'll pay the Sentinel tax and pass. But yeah, this game now took quite a turn. They probably have more hate pieces coming up. A Thraben Charm to answer Tamio. Yep. Could have also exiled their graveyard. Yeah, Breach just doesn't do it here. Cast a Manamorphose, pay the tax. Feels bad. And that's it. Good Manamorphose again. Sacking the spawn, maybe that's still worth it. Now I guess if I have both Baral and Aral, I can discount by 2. So that might make up for the Thalia. But yeah, we gotta go digging. Another Tamio, good with the Mox, but that's about it. Don't think that's gonna be what I need here. Even though I could, you know, play Tamio and then Ponder and then maybe string something together. Found Baral at least. So that can sort of cancel out Thalia. When it comes to casting instants and sorceries, doesn't help with the Mox loop. But maybe I can just chain together Manamorphose and Brain Freeze. A Ranger Captain could also be sacrificed to prevent me from casting non-creature spells. So if I'm playing the Breach, they can sack the Ranger Captain in response. But I'm just gonna sack it now. Okay, so still I think play Baral, although it might get removed. And then next turn there's a chance I can make something happen. Could also keep a Manamorphose, cast it in the opponent's turn, and then if I draw the Flame I can still cast it, which may be worth it. I don't think Lurrus is going to be relevant enough. Although, maybe it will be. Manamorphose can fix the colors to cast Lurrus next turn. So sure, I'll just put it in hand. Probably should have fetched with a Vista, as opposed to taking one of Confluence. So, moment of truth. Am I dead? Tapped cave. Guide of Souls is fine. Yeah, possible they sacrificed the ranger prematurely, but they had another one. I guess that makes sense. So once again, they can prevent me from going off. Captain hits me for 3. And this is an upkeep. So while I can Manamorphose, the floating mana would go away before I get a chance to cast Lurrus. It may be worth it just to get an extra card. If I draw another Confluence, I guess I could cast Lurrus, which is a lifelinker at least. And I can get back Tamiyo. So, is the extra card draw worth it? I think it is. And I don't think I pay the tax. Make blue-red in case I draw flame. Actually did. Okay, so I guess we're going for the flame now. Possible they have another Thalia in hand, but it is by far the most annoying card. And I think I need to draw 2 as opposed to blowing up the Esper Sentinel. Although if they go Guide of Souls into another creature, they can also just fly over and kill me, so then it doesn't really matter. And draw Tamiyo. And a Thought Scour. I can play Tamiyo, pass a turn, and now we've got a flying blocker for a potential Guide of Souls.
How am I supposed to focus on only one?
Alright, let's see what happens. Probably another Thalia. Guide of Souls first. And a Magistrate. Cannot cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. And that stops a breach. Yeah, so now I need to draw my second flame to answer it. And a lieutenant to pump the team. That's a lot of damage. So they can fly one of their creatures. So then I would have to chump with Baral pretty much. But yeah, the Magistrate is the problem now. I can chump to survive. I guess I can fetch. Do I have an island left? I do. Yeah, it's gonna take something really special. Not gonna pay the tax, since I don't want to tap Mana Confluence anymore. And Surgical Extraction on the Flame, since I know it's the only way I can answer the Magistrate. Well, I mean, this was about as tough an opposing deck you can face. Thalias, Thraben Charm, Surgical Extractions, double Ranger Captain. So it's definitely tailored for beating the Storm decks. And yeah, Storm decks they will beat. So I can Breach, but because of Magistrates I wouldn't be able to cast anything else. And also cannot play a Lurrus. Any chance I can just Brain Freeze my opponent here? I don't think so. And yeah, because of Magistrate we cannot cast anything. So that's game. I'll go out on our own terms. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We have 2 legendary creatures, a Breach, Thought Scour to fill the graveyard a little bit. Still missing the Brain Freeze and the Moxen, but I think we can try this. Opponent with Starting Town. Start with Tamio. And they seem to have an answer. It's going to be a Lightning Axe, discarding Iona, so it's a Reanimator. And yeah, Iona is pretty tough to beat for us, since we do not have a way to remove it. So yeah, gotta hope they can't reanimate it next turn. For now, I guess it's Malevolent Rumble over Baral, or I can just play Baral and then Rumble at a discount next turn. Although if they have another removal spell, I might get punished. I think I do need the discount next turn ideally. But yeah, the game could be over if they have the reanimation spell already. It's going to be an Izzet Charm to draw 2, discard 2. So maybe they don't have the Necromancy yet. Discarding Raph and Mikey and Galta. But no reanimation spell yet. Alright, so we still have a chance. Start with the Rumble. Could play around another Izzet Charm. Sure. Did not find anything too exciting. So then, yeah, if I were to Breach right now, I could Manamorphose. And then hope to go from there. Or I can risk it and give my opponent another untap step. Just go Tamio Thought Scour, and then I'm more likely to fully combo next turn with a Breach. So yeah, if I go for Breach into Manamorphose, I'll have 2 mana, but no cards left in graveyard. Thought Scour can add a few more. So there is a chance I could go all the way, assuming of course no Izzet Charm. I think I'm gonna wait an extra turn and go for Tamio into Thought Scour this turn. Just feels a little too risky, and if I fail to combo off with Breach this turn, I'm probably not gonna get another opportunity. If they have an Izzet Charm, they're probably digging for another reanimation spell. It's gonna be a Gaze instead. Digs pretty deep. Life Death is only 2 mana to get back Iona. Necromancy will require a 3rd land. And they didn't instantly keep something on top, so there's a chance we'll still get to combo here. And yeah, opponent plays a land and passes. Target myself, mill Double Flame, draw Ponder. And a Mana Confluence. So step 1, attack. So if I were to go for Breach now, I can at the very least Rumble a few times, Manamorphose. I think it's go time. Can sack the spawn, since I'll need my colored mana. Although, probably want to start with a Manamorphose. Make some extra mana. So I want green, blue. Find a backup Breach. So let's Rumble. And leaving Manamorphose. Find another Breach. And there's a Brain Freeze. Alright, so now Brain Freeze, target myself. And leaving the Manamorphose, since Brain Freeze provides the milling. And then we should be able to find a Mox, but even without it, Thanks to the discount from Baral, Manamorphose can also get the job done. And I don't think our opponent's going to have any creatures that shuffle themselves back, since those are kind of a non-bo with a Reanimator game plan. So yeah, we got lucky to dodge turn 2 or 3 Iona, and Brain Freeze gets it done. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing another Lourdes deck. We've got Mox, Ponder, Baral, Brain Freeze, so hand's got potential. Could wait on the Ponder to combine it with the Shuffle effect. Although I may want to play Baral on turn 2, so I'll just Ponder now. Alright, Manamorphose is excellent. Thought Scour isn't high priority, but I guess I can draw it, and then I'll be able to mill the mountain. So if our opponent's got a discard spell, I guess we don't want to show them the Manamorphose. Holding the Mox also maybe increases our storm count. So Battlefield Forge typically points towards auras. And a Guide of Souls, so could also be energy. Right, Prismatic Vista can also shuffle away the mountain. So I've got a few options. Now Baral doesn't help me cast a 1 mana Manamorphose. So what's my plan? Could just play Baral and then keep up Thought Scour, as opposed to Brain Freezing myself already. If they can remove Baral, we'll need to find a backup creature. Esper Sentinel makes me respond now. Draws Power Bluff. So we've got a pretty high likelihood of comboing if I draw the Underworld Breach. Tamio isn't bad. Okay, so this turn can start with Manamorphose. Probably paying the tax. If I draw into another cantrip, I can transform Tamio. And there's a Breach. Okay, so now I want to play Breach into Brain Freeze, since that'll increase my storm count. And then as long as I mill another Mox, we should be good to go. Could also, I guess, Manamorphose first, which is kind of a freebie. Go blue-blue. Play Tamio into Brain Freeze. Probably could have made some other colors as well here. But yeah, assuming we mill the Mox, then I can just replay Brain Freeze over and over. But yeah, there's a Mox. So we should be going infinite, or, well, pseudo-infinite, since of course we will eventually run out of cards in Graveyard. But not anytime soon. Then just replay the Mox a few times. Can wait until I can just double Brain Freeze, that's usually the most efficient. So around a storm count of 10, we can go for it. But yeah, ideally I would have kept another color available, so I could have still cast some other spells out of the graveyard as well. So, let's see. I only have 7 cards remaining. Should still be enough to just double Brain Freeze here, but I can always just hit myself with one of them So pretty normal looking energy deck. The Magebane Lizard would have been problematic, but that's where the Flame of Anor can be a good answer to it. So 24 cards left, Brain Freeze again. And that should be game. And there we go, awesome. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We've got a bunch of cantrips. So our hand's still gonna change quite a bit. Yeah, I'll give it a try. Opponent with a World Tree, so I'm not sure what to make of this yet. So for now I think we Thought Scour, and then next turn I can Ponder plus Shuffle. And a Bloom Tender. Okay, that's a scary card. Maybe they get to untap with it. Draw Ral. So I could play Ral now, or I can still go with the Ponder play, which is also pretty likely to find something useful. Alright, this is a Shuffle. Draw the Flame, could answer the Bloom Tender next turn. So then now Ponder versus Thought Scour, may as well Thought Scour and save the fetch to go with Ponder later, or the Rumble can also help us get rid of the top card. Alright, Sithis, so it's more of an enchantment deck. Opponent's going to untap with 3 mana, so possible they have some counter spells up here. And the Mox. So that's quite promising. They didn't seem to have a response to my Thought Scour. Possible they've got removal for creatures if I play Ral. Or they might have answers to permanents like Mox Amber. Of course, it would be better to have Ral in play when we play the Flame. So if I go Ral with a Mox, I can still cast the Flame. So maybe we'll try that this turn. Play the Mox first so I can immediately tap it for mana. And then maybe wait till their upkeep. Flame. Draw 2, deal with a Bloom Tender. And then, since it's not our turn, we're also not transforming Ral. And Greater Auramancy to protect their enchantments going forward. That's fine, so it could be kind of a Solemnity 9 lives prison deck as well. But yeah, for now it seems like we're good to go. So all I need to find is Underworld Breach. I've got Ponder and Rumble to try and hit it. So I can start with a Rumble. Ponder also has the Vista as a shuffle effect if needed. Take another Mox. Ponder. And did not find the Breach. Thought Scour is maybe okay. Can cast it, milling the 2 other cards, but it's kind of the same as a random draw. Except for I get rid of 2 cards that I know I don't need. So maybe that's still worth it, since I've got plenty of mana here. So Thought Scour myself. And then I could transform Ral already. I don't think I do. Although I guess transforming it does mean the Mox now taps for blue, which could be useful. I did not find the Breach. So then... And now what's play Baral? Can still redraw with Ral. And find another Mox. So while I can Brain Freeze and mill myself for a bunch, that's not gonna help find the Breach, so the plan now might be to go for Lurus, which I guess was a reason to play the Mana Confluence, although with only one, I'm still not going to be able to deploy it in time. Opponent now with an Ossification. I do have a Breach in the graveyard for Lurus.
Unexpected.
Rumble has a decent chance of finding it. There we go. Alright, so took us a while, but we should be good now. So tap this for blue, play the Mox. Just increase my storm count a bit for Brain Freeze as well, although my graveyard's already quite full. So play Breach. And replay the Mox. Storm count at 5. Just noticed our opponent's library size of 197. Okay, well, that's gonna take a little bit longer to fully mill out. So, some sort of 5-color enchantment deck. I think we still got this. Just gonna take a bit more clicking. Alright, so I might want to Brain Freeze myself first, just to fill my graveyard as much as possible. And then we want to increase our storm counts by a bunch before we start targeting our opponents. Yeah, it's sometimes tricky to notice how large the opponent's library is if you don't pay close attention. Alright, so we've got 5 cards remaining. So now we just loop the Mox Amber. There's definitely an equilibrium between making more Mox Ambers or casting more Brain Freezes, but of course Brain Freeze requires a blue mana, so we can't cast it infinitely. So then I first want to loop the Mox Amber before we start Brain Freezing. Alright, so I've got 29 cards in graveyard. Now let's do a few more Mox Ambers. Alright, so now I think we start Brain Freezing again. Probably did one too many Mox Ambers. Every subsequent Brain Freeze is going to mill for a little bit more, but that is a lot of cards. This is where I wish I had some alternate win condition. Like a Tendrils would have made it easy. Can also Thought Scour my opponent, but that's nowhere as efficient as Brain Freezing them. Alright, so Brain Freeze again. This time I'm also gonna target myself once, or even twice, so I've got more fuel to cast another Brain Freeze. Are we even halfway yet? We are not. Yeah, it's pretty deceptive looking at the stacks here. It looks like the graveyard's more full than the library, but it's nowhere close. So we're about to have 20 cards in graveyard. So I can cast 5 more Brain Freezes. So I think we'll be okay. Assuming we don't time out. This is ridiculous. Now I wouldn't be surprised if my opponent has a Gaia's Blessing somewhere in there. But no, opponent scoops it up. Alright, so milling out a 200 card deck doesn't happen every day, but there you go. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We have no red mana, but double ponder. So we drew both our basic islands. Yeah, I mean, this hand has the Raal, has the Breach. Manamorphose is great with Raal. So I think we still try it. And then we're looking for Mox, Brain Freeze, and red mana. Alright, so found plenty of mana fixing. Tamiyo would be a reasonable draw. It's kind of a backup legendary creature. So could draw the Confluence or the Vista, and then Tamiyo for turn. Don't think I need the mana Confluence afterwards, I can just fetch a mountain. And if our opponent's got a discard spell, they won't see Tamiyo now. So a green deck and a Wastes. Okay, that was unexpected. So it's a Eldrazi ramp deck. I believe that the Eldrazi Temple is no longer part of the format. But yeah, next turn they can still Myco spawn to get maybe an Ugin's Labyrinth. So don't have infinite time to combo off, plus I'm also worried about Kozilek's commands exiling things from my graveyard now. But I think playing Raal is pretty safe. So fetch away the Confluence, play Raal. And then next turn we can do some cool things with Tamiyo and Manamorphose. Could transform Tamiyo if I go Tamiyo, Manamorphose, Ponder. But we'll see. Alright, opponent just had an Ugin's Labyrinth in hand to begin with. So they've got 5 mana. Thought-Knot Seer could also disrupt our hand. It's going to be a Signet into maybe the Myco spawn. Yeah. Alright, so at least they're not disrupting us in any meaningful way. Dust Bowl, I guess, could destroy our non-basic. Now with a Flame, also a pretty nice draw. Could take out the Signet, draw 2 cards to slow the opponent down. Don't hate it. Can also play Tamiyo to transform her. Could still start with Manamorphose. And then I can still transform Tamiyo afterwards. So, sure. Cast Manamorphose. Do we transform Raal? Not in a hurry. So I need a red. Let's go with blue. So then I can play Tamiyo. Play the Flame.
This is an interesting story.
Transform Tamiyo, plus,
I hope you don't mind if I take notes.
and Ponder.
Bye then.
Looking for Brain Freeze now. Could keep a Thought Scour to mill for 2. Only have 4 cards in graveyard, so it's not very exciting. I think we shuffle. Find another Ponder. Okay. They've got 6 mana for another Myco spawn, this time with Kicker. Blowing up my mountain. And a Blast Zone on 1. Opponent doesn't attack since we could have just blocked with Ral. Okay, so yeah, if Ponder finds Brain Freeze, we should still be good to go. Could also fetch, but I don't have a mountain left. Tamio can also get back Manamorphose, so we'll start there. And Tamio can make a red. Cast Manamorphose. Go blue-red. Another Breach. So then we'll Ponder. Find another Flame. It is tempting. Sure. So then I can play the Flame. Probably wanted to actually shuffle first since I don't want to draw these 2. Yeah, I forgot the plan was to play Vista. Alright, so then how does that change my play? Still don't have Brain Freeze in circulation. Could still Breach. And then I can Ponder Shuffle. So we'll shuffle. Although now Manamorphose is tempting. Alright, so we'll keep the Manamorphose. Cast it. Green-blue. And then let's just Manamorphose again. Sure, I think we've reached a high enough storm count. Blue-red is probably okay. So we've got 7 loyalty here, a little bit short of ultimating. Play another Ral. And then Flame.
Will break my way, eventually.
And deal 5, draw 2. Find another Mox. Okay, play the Mox. This can make green thanks to Tamio, so I can Rumble. Find Tamio, mill the Brain Freeze. Alright, it's a bit of a messy turn here. This could minus. And then we want to play the Mox. Tap for blue, Brain Freeze. Which means I did get rid of the other Mox now, but I'll likely mill another one since I'm gonna mill my entire deck. Now for opponents got some Eldrazi Titans that shuffle themselves back. I could still lose here, of course. So that's now the main fear. But yeah, we probably weren't beating them anyway. Play the Mox. And Brain Freeze. So I did time out here, so I don't think I'll get the chance to cast another Brain Freeze. Unless it maybe goes to my second main phase, and then I could still maybe try again. So we better make this one count. Okay, we're getting close. Yeah, I think this one might actually do it. On the very last copy. Wow. And yeah, opponent did not mill any Eldrazi Titans that shuffled themselves back. Rawl's trigger resolves, we did time out, so no chance to cast another Brain Freeze, but we did not need it. Awesome. So yeah, very messy turn here, but still managed to combo off thanks to a few lucky draws along the way. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We've got 3 legendary creatures to discount our Brain Freeze. So this hand needs Underworld Breach, something like the Malevolent Rumble would be effective. Yeah, it's not perfect, but I'll give it a shot. Our opponent does not have a companion, so it could be the Azorius High Noon deck, which is our worst matchup. That's a bunch of lands. I think we shuffle, even though I could keep the Vista and shuffle, I'm still gonna draw a second land after, which is a bit much. Find a Confluence anyway. Turn 1 Swamp. Alright, Tamio can wait, play Ral. Likely gets removed, but since we have a couple more, it's not a disaster. Never mind, opponent maybe a Living End, a Reanimator deck, or just Reanimator in general. And gets a Steam Vents. And a Mox is nice. So, what's my plan here? Opponent could potentially Cascade on turn 3 if they have a Violent Outburst. So I'm hesitant to play too many creatures out. I guess there's an argument for Brain Freezing myself. Because if they are on Living Ends, I would get to reanimate a bunch of creatures myself.
This is an interesting.
Could also put Lurrus in hand. But that would also benefit from having more cards in graveyard with Brain Freeze. So, yeah, interesting spots. Maybe we just go Baral into Brain Freeze. While my Storm count is high enough. And there's a chance I'll transform Ral. Milled another Mox. So yeah, we're just an Underworld Breach away from potentially comboing off. Did not win the flip. Okay, so hope not to get swept up by a Living End. Although with double Confluence, we do have Lurrus as an option as well. And we did also mill another Ral and a Baral, so I guess Living End would still get me 2 creatures back. Opponent just cycling a bunch of creatures end of turn. And they're gonna wait. So step 1, I guess I can attack, see if we get a clue. Okay, that works. So then now I can try to rumble. And if we hit a breach, we could be doing it. Opponent might violent outburst in response. Yep. So they're gonna hit Living End, getting back 3 creatures, but I'll get back Ral and Baral as well, so there's no real need to do anything in response. And then again, if we hit Underworld Breach, we can still fully combo off.
Chance of storms today? 100%.
Opponent did prevent a potential transformation from Ral. Would have transformed it as well. Alright, did not hit the breach. So now we could still be in trouble. Just put a Lurrus in hand, or I can sack the clue. Because yeah, we do have another Mox in the graveyard. So if I draw Breach right now, I can still win. Another Mox. Doesn't really change the equation too much. So I can play it just to put Lurrus in hand. Alright, so we're getting attacked for a pretty healthy amount. So I'm gonna have to chump and then hope to top deck. I do not have a breach in graveyard either for Lurrus to get back. So these two trample. So if they have another violent outburst, they could give these 1 extra power, which would be 15 total. So safest would be to actually chump with Ral, have another one in hand anyway. So I don't die to a violent outburst. And I also need more life for Mana Confluence. Alright, so yeah, Manamorphose is step 1. And making a red second color is less clear. Could be white or black for Lurrus, but again, since we don't have Breach in the graveyard, I don't think it really matters. I don't think I'm surviving another attack either way. So then, let's go with green. Find a Ponder, okay. Can we find something? We do. Underworld Breach. Draw it, cast it. Opponent's got a response. Maybe a Force of Negation. Yeah, alright, fair enough. So that's why they're playing the extra color. And they even had a blue card to pitch to it. Alright, then we're just dead. GG's. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have Ral, a Rumble, Ponder facing another Lurrus deck. Yeah, I think we can give this a shot. Start with Ponder. And find the Flame and a Manamorphose, so these are all pretty good. So, Manamorphose first, then Flame. Let's see for opponents, maybe on the Aura deck. Does look like it's turn 1 Esper Sentinel. Okay, so this turn Ral, hope it doesn't get removed. And then next turn we can do some damage.
Another day, another job.
Including casting the Flame to destroy the Sentinel. Light Pause is a must answer. So how about Flame to deal with both creatures? Can pay the Sentinel tax. or we can ignore it to try and keep going. I think I'm fine just paying the tax here. We don't seem to be in a hurry. And our opponent definitely wasn't expecting the removal spell. Let's see if they've got a backup creature. They do. Core Spirit Dancer. Not quite as scary as the Light Paws. Opponent could have a protection spell left in hand as well. Okay, so kick things off with a Rumble. Not in a hurry to transform Raal. And find Breach. Six cards in graveyard. So I can Manamorphose. Make a red, make a green. Find another Rumble, excellent. So we're unlikely to fizzle out. Get my island. Vista could add an extra card in graveyard for Breach, but I don't think that's going to be super relevant. So we'll play Breach. And then could immediately Brain Freeze to fill the graveyard a whole bunch. Or I could first Manamorphose. And getting rid of some lands. So we want a blue and a green. Find another Breach. Alright, can Rumble and then Brain Freeze. Still haven't played land for turn. And do I transform Raal? Sure. Could have waited to get a little bit more loyalty, but it saves me from taking damage. So Brain Freeze myself with a land drop remaining. So should have enough cards going to the graveyard where we're gonna hit something useful. Could technically Brain Freeze again afterwards as well. But as long as we find a Mox or two, we should be good to go. Now Raal is also a blue permanent, so the Mox can tap for blue. And yeah, we've got double Mox in the graveyard. So that should be lights out. Play the Mox, exiling some lands. Tap it for blue, play a Mox. Tap it for blue. Repeat this a few times. Opponent's got 50 cards in library. So I guess just going for a Brain Freeze twice here is good enough. Brain Freeze, target my opponents. And then Brain Freeze again. So turn 4 kill, didn't even need to play my 4th land. And there's a chance we could have already won on turn 3, but just playing it a little slow, answering their threats. Because if we did fizzle out, our opponent would have untapped with Light Paws, which is quite scary. So that'll take care of over half of their deck. And then the second Brain Freeze has an even higher storm count. And it doesn't matter too much what we exile. Alright, and that'll do it. Awesome. So yeah, we got to see this Temur Breach deck in action. A different variation of this used to be quite a menace in Modern, but nowadays, in Best of One especially, I don't think I would recommend this, just because there's quite a bit of hate floating around for the various Storm decks, and while not technically a normal Storm deck, this is still operating on a very similar axis, so then cards like High Noon on turn 2 can completely shut us down. There's also a good amount of graveyard hate in the format, so I think there's enough reasons not to want to play a Storm deck right now, but the metagame might fluctuate and there might be a point somewhere in the future where playing Storm and this Breach build can still be worth it, but then we also have to ask ourselves whether or not this is better than the classic Red Storm decks with a bunch of ritual effects. And I think maybe the Red Storm decks still have the edge, since they can maybe more explosively win on turn 3, whereas this deck needs a few more pieces to line up. So yeah, overall, wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but if you want to brain freeze people out, this is the way to do it. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.